actually there's research out that says doctors are horrible with money, right? We we're in that mindset of, the monthly payment mindset. We make a high income, so we think we can buy anything, we can afford anything. So doctors are very bad with money. So
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Weapon Prize Show, a show where we inspire the masses to become financially free while building God's kingdom. On the show today, we have Dr. Charles Boadu. Dr. Charles is a dedicated physician with a passion for personal finance who's committed to helping doctors overcome financial challenges and build wealth by providing practical guidance and strategies tailored to their unique needs. Today, we're going to discuss Dr. Charles, how he paid up $120,000 in debt and how he helped doctors build wealth for themselves. So thank you for being here, Dr. Boadu.
thank you. Thanks for having me, Dami. This is I enjoy what you're doing, and I've listened to a couple episodes, like I said before, and glad to share my story.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. To
You're welcome.
get us started, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Little little tired. We just came back from Orlando just this earlier this week, so we're on vacation, in the Universal Studios, and we're at the resort enjoying ourselves. So a little tired from that, but doing well. Yeah,
That's really
God's
good.
grace.
That's really good. I'm glad you enjoy your vacation.
Yeah.
To start the conversation, I want to ask, what inspired you to become a doctor?
So I would say it's always been a childhood dream. Since I was a kid, I really enjoyed biology. I enjoyed physiology, basically how the body works, and just looking back, like probably around the age of maybe 5 or 7, I knew like I enjoyed the sciences, I enjoyed math, and I always had a goal to be a doctor for some reason.
Okay.
Fast forward, I grew up in Ghana, by the way. I was born and raised in Ghana until I was a teenager, moved here. When I moved here, my mom, was like, you should probably go to pharmacy because I've seen, she frequented a pharmacy in the neighborhood, and she was like, they always have a job, It's like a shift work, you go in, you do your shift, and you go home. So initially, I decided to do pharmacy, from her encouragement, of course. And once I started it, it wasn't really as interesting as I wanted. I wanted more exposure, I wanted more patient contact, and I also thought that the scope of practice wasn't really what I wanted. So I made the transition and decided to go to medical school, and decided a little later. So I wasn't a traditional medical student, so I ended up going to the Caribbean for medical school, and then moved back to the States and residency, and now I'm in fellowship to be a cardiologist. So
Wow,
that's my
wow,
path.
wow, what a journey. And how many more years do you have before you become a cardiologist?
2 years, 2 years, and I'll be a board certified cardiologist. Yeah.
Okay, definitely congrats. Definitely
Long
congrats.
journey, definitely long journey.
It's a very long journey. Uh,
Yeah, man.
I guess we can. So yes, I want to kind of talk about because you mentioned that you wanted to become a pharmacist, because of the influence of your mom, knowing the neighbors who was a pharmacist. I want to ask, um, because oftentimes I come from Nigeria, oftentimes in Nigeria,
Yep.
in the community,
Africans, yeah.
is being a doctor, lawyer, engineer, all these careers are what they tell us to do and pursue. And oftentimes, you find out, people going down these different careers, or start going down these different careers, and they realize, oh, it's not for them. And by the time they realize it, most of the time is usually when they have taken out a bunch of student loans,
Yeah.
already in law school, and they realize, okay, this is not for me. They drop out of law school, drop out of medical school. So I want to talk about what would you tell people to do to avoid that kind of, sick mistake, that common mistake that often people go through?
That's a great question. So I would say mentorship is the best way to go. Seek mentors, if it's a field you're interested in, try to shadow someone in that field and make sure this is what you see yourself doing, right? You know, you know, God gives everyone a purpose, right? We already all have a purpose for our lives, and you may think it is your purpose until you get into it. And, you know, God in his own wisdom will show you if this is, you know, this is what he wants you to do, right? So I think for me, I kind of knew I wanted to be a doctor, but it was more of the fear and, you know, the things that I heard people say, hey, you know, this is really hard. Are you sure you want to do this? So there was some fear aspect there, and me kind of later on figuring out, you know what, I can do this. It was just that getting that confidence to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to pursue. And it boils down, it's the same thing as building wealth, right?
Yeah.
You say this is what you want to do, but now, you know, you got to put your feet to the fire. Like, all right, get into it and experience it. And, you know, if it is your purpose, you know, God will, you know, help you through it. Yeah.
And amen. And I want to kind of like, go into, because, being the fact your mom did tell you to become a pharmacist, what was the conversation like when she knows that you was not going that pharmacy route anymore?
I think the fact that I was doing, you know, something in the health field, and it was a career that she knew would pan out, and now, you know, I'd be okay. I would have a comfortable life. She was okay with. Um, I guess if I had said I wanted to be, I don't know, a writer or something, then she would have, you know, probably been like, hey, you know, this is not, the four fields is for African kids, right? It's doctor, lawyer, you know, I guess business, nurse, I don't know, right? So your healthcare field or finance or something like that, they're comfortable with. But I guess it worked out that I wanted to be a doctor and not, you know, something else. Yeah.
That's really good. And just to add on, I have like two questions to add from this what you said. One, you mentioned that this journey was hard and intense, and those who do go into these professional careers, is long, 4 years of law school, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of pharmacy school,
Yeah.
certificate. But what gave you the courage to continue to the courage to finish and also the confidence to know that you can do it because oftentimes people still they shy like you mentioned or mentor so find a mentor and a mentor tell them okay this is good they get
Hmm.
praise but yet they still find themselves when they get to it like they don't know if this is something that they want to do like I just had a conversation recently um with a friend who was working becoming an anesthesiologist, and he was telling me how like he basically medical school and residency is overwhelming. Like everything all around medicine. Like he doesn't really have a life around it. He doesn't like that, and
Yeah.
reason is also a reason why a lot of people. Even though they have the student loans, even though they halfway there, they still drop out. They still say it's not worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything you can add besides like getting a mentor. Like how can people like still ensure like this is for them?
Yeah. It's a great question. So it comes back to, you know, the purpose, and then of course you gotta have passion for what you want to do, right? It's not gonna be a cakewalk. I mean, medicine is hard. Like you said, your friend was rightfully so saying that it's hard. Anesthesiology is not, it's not easy. Tough hours, right? You're probably in the hospital at 6 a.m., just like medicine, right? You probably don't leave till who knows, 8, you know, depending on what shift you're doing, right? So you just got to have that mental fortitude. You know, this is what you want to do. You know, like anything, it's going to be hard. I'm sure, you know, being, you know, a pastor is hard, right? Being a teacher is hard, right? Being in finance, you know, entrepreneurship, it's not going to be easy, right? So it's a matter of just kind of having that faith, knowing this is what you want to do. You've prayed about it, right? But now you got to do the work, right? The Bible says in Isaiah, right? Like when you walk through the waters, I'll be with you. When you walk through the fires, I'll be with you, right? So he's going to be with you. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be challenging, but he promised that he's always going to be with you, right? So I always had my faith to, you know, kind of lean on. I remember prior to going to med school, there was this lady at my church, and she was like, you know, we're praying for you. But then she was like, you know, whenever you get time, you know, I know you're a young man, you know, you're, you know, you're busy, blah, blah, blah. But she's like, whenever you get time, you know, sit back and just say a prayer, right? Like pray to God and he's gonna help you, you know, and I always remember that. It was like, it was so weird that she came up, you know, one of the older ladies in the church that kind of, you know, just, you know, likes you for some reason. And you know, that helped me so much. You know, I'm always able to lean on my faith, even now. You know, it's you have your ups and downs, you know, tough days, some days are light, but you trust and believe in God and you move on, and he'll lead you through it. Yeah.
Amen, amen. Thank you for sharing that. Now I want to kind of like dive into like um the expense that comes with, pursuing a career in medicine,
Mhm.
student loans.
Yeah.
I want to first, like, do you have any student loans or how
Yes,
did
I do, of course.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to assume. I just got,
Yeah, I mean, I'm come from an immigrant background, right? My parents are not college educated, right? I'm the second person in my family to go to college. I'm the first doctor in the family, right? So we, grew up in New York City, grew up in, in an apartment, right? Yeah, I have student loans. I don't want to shed a figure, but hundreds of thousands of student loans, right? So I have 3 degrees. I have 2 masters and I have a doctorate, right? So for all that, of course I had to use student loans, but the thing is I have a plan, right? I think a lot of folks kind of, you know, you get into medicine. I tell, I coach folks, right, on finance and building wealth. And I tell them, look at it this way. Student loans are basically like taking out a business loan, right? So you took basically a mortgage out on your brain, right? Like as a doctor, you literally it's a mortgage size anyway, right? So it's a business plan, right? You take the business loan, and now when you're done with school, when you get that nice job and you sign that football salary, whatever, right? Now you have to have a plan to pay it back, right? That's all it is. And paying it back, there's several ways to pay back your student loans, right? There's a public service loan forgiveness program where, if you work for a nonprofit, 501c3, even as a doctor, you can make 120 payments and the rest is forgiven tax free, right? There's also the, income driven, repayment plans where you can pay, for maybe for 20 years or 25 years and the rest is forgiven, but you have to pay, you're hit with the tax bond, right? You have to pay the taxes on the amount that's forgiven, right? Or you could just do your standard way and then kind of refinance to a lower interest rate, maybe not now anyways, because interest rates are really high, and pay it off gradually. I mean, depending on what field you're in as a doctor, if you're a primary care doctor, if you're, anesthesiologist or cardiologist, I mean, you're gonna be okay, right? You're gonna make multiple six figures. So you can have a plan to pay off your student loans, right? So I tell folks, make sure you have a plan. I mean, I know a lot of folks who kind of just went to college because their parents wanted them to go to college, right? Didn't really have a plan. But even then, it's like, okay, if you get out with $100,000 of student loans, and then let's say you get out, you're not using your degree, you have a job making maybe 50K a year or so. There's a way for you to pay off your student loans, right? PSLF, however you want to do it, like seek help, right? And figure out a plan to pay off the student loans. Because at the end of the day, they're going to come for their money, right? Don't, I know folks who just don't pay and then ruin their credit. That's not the best way to go, right? Because then financially, you're basically handcuffed. You can't do much, right? So have a plan and you're going to be successful.
I definitely like that. I definitely wanted to go into detail on the kind of plan that you have. A question I wanted to ask, as a college graduate myself, one thing that I was very mindful of student loans, when I was going to choose my, my degree in biology,
Mhm.
even thinking about if I was going to do grad school, whatever, grad school or go to med school.
Mhm.
I was very curious on the students. I was wondering, was that you taking out students, did that play an effect on your decision of what school you went to, what program you went to?
So one thing with my medical schools, they didn't have student loans, I think, while I was there, which ended up with me doing the master's program to actually get funding in a way for my medical school, right? So in a way, it ended up with me getting more student loans. So of course, yeah, it played a role. I wanted a school that had student loans, but dude, I found the first school that accepted me, and I was just ready to go. I just wanted to matriculate, get through, and get my MD degree, right? So yeah, it played a role. in terms of, I guess, career choice, like basically what field that I got into for residency, most doctors will make multiple six figures. Like even pediatricians will make at least 180K or so, right? So in that sense, I mean, not necessarily. I loved internal medicine. I loved talking to people and being, just the primary doctor that they focus on. And then, of course, cardiology is basically like a step up from that, right? You're the person's cardiologist. I mean, heart disease is like the number one killer, right? Besides cancer. So, you know, you're always going to have a job. And this is a job where you're right there with the patient. You do clinic work, you also do hospital work, you can do some procedures, right? So it fit with my lifestyle and my personality. So that's why I went into it. But I would say it probably didn't play a big role in what, I guess career choice I made after medicine, right? Because I figured medicine, I mean, you'd be okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question to follow up with that, how would you suggest people to like pick the different residency or different path they want to go around medicine? Because oftentimes people like to choose the high paying jobs in the medicine
Yeah.
because of high student loans. They have a master's, they have an undergrad,
Yeah.
trip to Paris, all these different things.
I know. I see folks. Once they get into residency, they take that big trip, and Um. So the good thing with student loans is there's so many ways to finagle this and pay it off eventually as a doctor, right? So I know I listen to this podcast, the student loan planning podcast, and he's like, of course you have a plan, right? Depending on what you see yourself doing. If you want to be a pediatrician, right? Pediatrician are probably not at the top of the income level with doctors, right? So you're probably gonna make maybe anywhere from 180 to 220 or whatever. So you can kind of, figure out your plan moving forward, right? But either way, like you're gonna do okay, right? If you're planning on going to an Ivy League school and tuition for an Ivy League medical school is not cheap, right?
Yeah.
But even if you have a plan, okay, I'm going to work for the VA or I'm going to work for a nonprofit, your loans are going to be forgiven once you make those 120K, 120 payments, right? So you can plan that way. Even if you end up with 500K of student loans, it's going to be 10% of your discretionary income for 120 payments, whatever's done, it's forgiven, right? So kind of think and have a plan, all right? But I mean, if you want to pick, plastic surgery because they make $1 million a year just because, I don't think that's smart. Do you enjoy it, right? It has to bring joy to you, right? Whatever field, because you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. All right. So, like your friend in anesthesia, I mean, it's unfortunate that, I think you said he wants to leave the field or something.
Oh, he's overwhelmed by the time that he been in school. Like he went from high school to college and medical school. Like he hasn't had any real break.
Felt like he hasn't had a break, right? Yeah. So that's a common theme. I mean, once you're done, you're gonna have all the time. You're gonna get a job, but now you have money, right? So you can take all the trips you want. I mean, anesthesia is a great field, So I think you should stick with it and just get through. Yeah.
Right. And just to I know with student loans, just from my undergrad experience, like there's different type of student loans. Is there any
Mhm.
type of loan that you recommend students who are looking to get in medical school to presumably get? There's private, there's public, there's solidarity, there's all these type of loans. Is there any specific type of loans that you tell those who are interested in becoming a doctor or pursuing a career in the medical field?
Yeah. I would stick with the federal loans. I mean, for the good thing with me is all my loans are federal loans. So during this pause, I basically haven't made a payment since, the pause initially was started, right? So private loans I would stay away from, if you can. I know there's some I know there are loans that your parents can take out for you, right? It's like the plus loans, right? I would stay away from that, because that gets a little tricky, on getting them forgiven. So stay away, in that federal umbrella, right? And there's also there are grants that you can look into. There's I would stick with the subsidized loans, right? So for undergrad, of course, is the federal subsidized loans. They do have unsubsidized loans for like grad school, right? but then I'll stay away from the plus loans. And I know Sally Mae is not a friend to most medical students. They want their money now, and rates are usually higher. So yeah, stick with the federal loans.
All right. Um, yes, I definitely appreciate you sharing that. Do I have any, but I mean, so being that said, I want to kind of jump into, um, and what allowed you to become a doctor? Oftentimes, doctor we know as getting a big check. They making a lot of money. But it's rare that you find them them very cautious, from the beginning, like you are, in terms of their future, financial future, retirement, investing. So what made you want to get be so passionate about investing, personal finance and helping other doctors?
Great question. So I don't know. I guess I'm after medical school. I was unmatched for the first year, so I was home. And at that point, we had just had our first daughter, and so I was home with her, and I guess just being married and living in an apartment just didn't jive with me. I wanted a house, right? I wanted space, and I wanted to be able to chase her and run around and enjoy what I always heard about, right? With being a homeowner. And I would, for some reason, I always liked real estate, right? I think it's a cool thing to own a home and even be a landlord and to rent and stuff like that. Although I haven't done it yet. We own our home now, but I'm not a landlord yet. So that kind of started it for me. So I would always look at homes. I would talk to my wife then. She was working as a nurse, and you know I brought it up to her like, I think we should get a house, and she was like, she made a comment that stuck with me. She's like, who's gonna give you a mortgage with that with your credit? Your credit sucks, right? And she was right. Our whole financial picture was bad, right? We had credit cards out the wazoo. We were just kind of living life, right? So that started that whole journey of, okay, we need to get our stuff together, right? So I was home, like I said, I wasn't working yet, so literally started Googling, basically how to become financially free. And of course, we found Dave Ramsey's plan and kind of harped onto that. So just not just Dave Ramsey, because there were other, there were physicians in the space as well. The great thing about it was the white coat investor was around. I believe there was the physician philosopher also. So I started listening to all these podcasts, right? And I kind of put them all together. But initially we really I went gun ho with the Dave Ramsey plan, baby steps. Saving $1,000, as a first emergency fund, and then just kind of listing all your debts. So we listed all our debts, and I love the spreadsheet. I'll be on Excel with everything, kind of put everything together, listed all the loans, interest rates, and all that, right? And I was just hooked. Like I'm telling you, I was gun home. I was driving Uber, Lyft. I was doing everything I could, right? I put my daughter in daycare. My wife's working, so we combine our income, and we were just going debt by debt. We were just killing it, right? So we literally paid off most of our consumer debt, right? And then eventually I ended up getting a residency here in Florida, and when we moved, we basically had all our consumer debts paid off, right? And even some student loans, some small minor student loans here and there. Right. So that's what started it. And then once we got to Florida, once I started residency, basically I have a clean slate, right? All I have is my federal student loans. We really, didn't have to make too much payments on that. And you know, one time we had like a job fair or something, like these HR fairs that they do at the job. And, we had a banker come, and I was just speaking to him, just like, some, mortgage broker. And, they're telling me, oh, this is the rate. They actually have a physician's loan that you can get, no money, you paid no down payment, you just pay the interest, basically low interest, and you pay no PMI, and I was like, sounds kind of cool. No way. Right. So went back home, spoke to my wife, and to be honest, we literally got into a home, easy, like it was so easy, right? So that's really what began that journey. And then once we were able to get into the house, of course I started investing in my 401k, got a little heavier, started reading more, about investing and all that. And I would always talk about it to my co-residents, right? So it became a thing where I helped, like, basically there were 15 of us. I probably helped maybe 12 of them open a Roth IRA. Maybe I'll say 10. So 10 out of 15 open a Roth IRA for the first time, right? Because of course I had a passion for it. For some reason, I just enjoyed it, right? And so they would ask me, oh, what stock should I buy? What index fund should I invest in? So of course I put everyone in VTI, easy, simple, total stock market index fund. Buy that, and then I would research stocks. I'll give people pointers. So then people were saying, hey, I would rather give you my money to invest for me. And I'm like, I'm not a financial planner. I don't do that, right? So I kept getting those questions. And then eventually I said, you know what? Maybe I should, start a company and actually get serious with this and teach folks about this. Because, doctors actually, there's research out that says doctors are horrible with money, right? We we're in that mindset of the monthly payment mindset. We make a high income, so we think we can buy anything, we can afford anything. So doctors are very bad with money. So after that, I decided, I'm going to start this. So that's really what led me to starting a company, building a website, and just started getting clients and started coaching folks on how to build wealth and become financially free.
That,
Yeah.
that, that is really great. And I want to go more into detail about the $120,000 plus of debt that you was able to pay with it.
Mhm.
What were the steps that you took to get rid of that? Actually, before that, before I ask that question, you mentioned something about when you started, you told your wife you're going to buy a house. That she asked you how are you going to get a house with all this debt, what your financial picture look like. It didn't look great. And looking at different people, Dave Ramsey, what stood out about Dave Ramsey compared to other people? You mentioned got the physician, financial information,
Yeah, the white coat investor.
white
Yes.
coat investors. What stood out to you about Dave Ramsey compared to the white coat investors who are doctors, who also helping people with their financial journey?
So initially, I think the faith aspect of Dave Ramsey is what stuck out to me, of course. You know, one thing I really liked about his show was he would always say that he reads a proverb for every day of the month. Like that's really smart. Like there are literally like 31 books in the book of Proverbs, right? So you can literally pick one for every day. And then, just how he's able to pick texts from the Bible to support, building wealth. How a lot of Christians actually believe the rich are evil, right? Like concepts like that. You hear these things and it resonates with you, right? So I would literally I would watch a show every day, while I was driving, doing my Uber gig. If I don't have a customer or someone in my car, I'm listening to the show, right? I'm listening to other podcasts. So for me, I think we started with that, and then it kind of gelled with the other, folks in the space, right? So the white coat investor, physician, and philosopher, and all that. So I guess I kind of, once we were out of debt, out of consumer debt anyway, I kind of started, joining the physician, philosopher, and white coat investor, concepts to the Dave Ramsey concepts, right? And then now I kind of basically birthed my own thing. Right.
That's really great. And I want to being that said, so what are some steps you took to pay off that $120,000 debt? Learn from Dave Ramsey,
Mhm.
which is say 1,000, and then the snowball method. So what were some steps or tools you used to pay off that $120,000 debt?
So the first step was that $1,000 emergency fund, right? And for me, I think for us, we probably did 2,000 just to kind of be a little safer. And then just listing all the debts, just list everything, right? The most important aspect is probably the budgeting aspect, right? You have to budget. You have to know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. Right now, you know what's left, and whatever's left is basically what you can use. Right. So you have what's your income, your fixed expenses, and then whatever's left, that's what you can use to pay off debt and build wealth. Right. So that's what I teach. I think the budget is very important. Of course, as you kind of graduate and pay off some debt and are a little bit more free. I would say financially free, but kind of you have some, a little bit of cushion.
Yeah.
Um, at that point, you don't really have to budget strictly. Like, okay, this is how much I spend on groceries, and this is how much I'm going to spend on eating out. Like, you have a cushion, so you can kind of you can do some quick, math in your head and say, okay, yeah, I think we'll be okay to spend this much this month. Like, let's say you want to give, right, to your in-laws or something. You want to give $500 to your in-laws this month. You know how much money you have left at the end of every month. So you can give that amount freely, right? So, but initially you have to budget. Listing the debts, I think is huge. I like Express, I'm sorry, Excel spreadsheets, and I would literally list everything, kind of, monitor how much we're paying each month, right? And I think that kind of, gave that was the catalyst, right? So once you see that you paid all this debt, it gives you like a boost, like, wow, we're getting closer to the goal, right? And then every month, you just kind of keep at it. And of course, my faith, right? We tithe it, right? So we give 10% of our income, to the church. And I always, from Dave Ramsey's method, you want to be a good steward of money, right? If you think through, God has entrusted you with this wealth. Obviously, He wants you want to be a good steward, right? At the end of the day, you want Him to say, good, what is the text? Good, you've been a good and faithful servant, come into my paradise, I'll entrust you with more, right? With the story with the talents, right?
Yeah.
So that's always something in my mind. And naturally, I love to give. So in my mind, for you to be able to give, you have to be financially free, right? You have to know, you have to be really good with your money, right? You got to know where each dollar is going, all right? And you gotta have reserves,
Uh,
all right? So that's the concept that I used.
no, I definitely like the fact that you share that. A common theme that seems as is going on is your faith, and I want to kind of like use great opportunity to talk a little bit about your faith. How has your faith helped you when you was getting started to where you are right now in your financial journey? How has your faith helped you in this process, and how would you recommend people to rely on their faith in Christ?
Good question. I think my faith is everything, right? Like Paul says, I know how to, be comfortable in much and be and comfortable in having little, right? So at the end of the day, we're stewards of money, It's not yours, it's God's money, right? He gives you the power to acquire wealth. So once you understand that concept, you're mainly a steward. So your job is to manage the money well, right? So God can be proud of you, right? So for me, my faith is is everything, right? Every day I live with my faith, right? And then knowing that God has a plan for your life, He has a purpose for your life. So if it's His purpose for me to be financially free, why don't I lean on Him? I can't do this on my own. Right? Jesus said He's going to send you the comforter. When He comes, He's going to lead you into all truth. Right? So why He said you should rely on the Holy Spirit. You can't do it on your own. Right? If you do it by your own, you know, capacity, you're going to fail. Right. So I would say folks should just lean on your faith, lean on God. Of course, do your best. You know what I mean? Don't just say, "Oh, God, it's in your hands." So I'm gonna go shopping, at Macy's, and I'm gonna I'm gonna buy this, and I'm gonna go buy a brand new car, and you have payments out the wazoo, and it's in God's hands. No, I don't mean that. For you to be a good steward, you have to plan, right? And wise people plan, right? So once you've planned, you pray about it and you give it to God, and He would definitely bring it to pass. Right.
Amen. And just going on that same path of being a good steward, I want to kind of because you mentioned that when you pay off this $120,000 of debt was consumer debt. So I guess my first question would be, would you suggest or recommend to a fellow doctor, fellow residents, to pay off the consumer debt first, and be mindful of the kind of consumer debt that they have, being the fact they are going to take out student loans, being the fact they are going to take out a huge amount. So how would you recommend people to look at consumer debt?
Oh yeah, definitely get out of consumer debt. I mean, that's perhaps the worst debt you can ever be in, right? I would say I would like student loan debt over consumer debt any day, right? Most credit card interest rates are 29.99. I mean, I think it's probably even higher now with the, Fed funds rate, so high. So it's it's probably the worst debt you could ever be in. I tell folks all the time, I mean, don't get into credit card debt, right? Um, if you're paying interest, I mean, you're literally giving money away to the banks, right? And I remember I heard there was this video I was watching, and this pastor was saying, he went to during the pandemic, he was in Atlanta, he went to the Phipps Mall, and there was a line right around the Louis Vuitton store, and he's like, why are we giving our money to all these people, their families, their last names, right? Louis Vuitton is someone's name, Polo is someone's name. He's like, I think I like the Thompsons, he's referring to his last name. Like, I want to keep some money for my last name too, So don't give your money out to another family. At the end of the day, God, he started with a family. He blesses families, right? So keep the money in your family, right? Get out of consumer debt. It's probably the worst debt. And the good thing is, once you're out of credit card debt, your credit score is higher, right? So now, you can actually buy assets,
Yeah,
right? So, things like a home, like a rental property, right? Stocks, bonds. Those are assets. So spend more money on assets. Once the good thing is once you start to buy assets, you kind of get addicted because now you see that they're growing value,
yeah.
right? They're not, you're not having to give some money your money and you never see that money again. This money actually grows. So once you see that, it motivates you to keep investing. All right.
That's very true. And I want to ask, while we're in this topic of consumer debt, would you recommend that pre-med student residents what you call it, not have any kind of consumer debt while they're going through this journey of becoming a doctor? Because oftentimes, because they want to enjoy life and don't want to feel like,
Yeah.
they may get a credit card and, go on spurge, meaning the fact
Yeah.
that I have student loan debt already, so what would you say to someone who may be a student, a medical student or a pre-med student?
Yeah. Um, so credit card debt it's not wise, right? I mean, and think about it. You're paying if you let's say you bought, some pair of sneakers or something, right? You're basically, let's say it cost you 120 bucks. Now, if you're not able to pay that off, you're literally paying interest on that money,
Yeah,
right? So whatever that cost you 120 bucks, now it may cost you actually 150, 180, depending on when you're able to pay it off. So I would say for pre-med students, I mean, you definitely pre-med student, you want to stay out of debt. You don't have an income, right? So you obviously can't pay it off. Um, be wise, right? Probably work it out with your student loans where you're able to spend some of your student loans and not get into credit card debt. All right. Now, as a resident, now you have an income. All right. So still, you only spend on credit cards what you can pay off, right? Having good credit is excellent. You want to start early, right? So maybe have one credit card that you use for gas and groceries and all that, and you pay it off at the end of the month. Right. That's the best way to use credit cards. I know I've heard stories like, oh, I thought you were supposed to keep 30% of your limit and that's how you build good credit. I'm like, no, that's a myth. I thought so too before I actually learned about it, right? So no, you want to keep a zero balance, right? You just use it and pay it off. Right. So no, stay out of credit card debt. It's the best way you can. If you're in it, work hard to get out of it, and you'll be free. You'll definitely feel free.
yeah, 100% right. You definitely will feel free paying up your credit card, especially with interest rates,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Being at 5%, it's definitely important to not have no credit card debt or any kind of consumer debt. Uh,
Yep.
and and going on that same path, I'm sure people have said, they hear you, Dr. Charles, that, the light bulb went off, because you want to buy a house. But, I'm going to focus on medical school. I'm going to focus on, residency. Once I start making this big money, that big doctor check, that's when I'm going to start focusing on getting my
I've
finance.
heard that. I've heard that argument, and I have friends who, like colleagues in residency and fellowship who are like, I'm not gonna start investing, I feel like I should enjoy all my money now and literally, they're taking trips every month or whatever. And it's to me, my response is building wealth is a habit, right? Excuse me. So you're not one day, just going to get a big check and say, oh, yes, I'm going to invest 30% of my income and I'm going to be financially free at this point. That's not how life works, right? Dave Ramsey makes this, he always makes this statement that, you don't win a Super Bowl by accident, right? The team that wins the Super Bowl is the one that's, spend so much time during the summer training and getting ready for all the games, right? So, that's not how you build wealth. And that's my argument. It's a habit. Even if it's $50 a month that you can, put into, a Roth IRA, brokerage account, your 401k, start there, right? Just small habits. So now once you get that big check, it's not hard for you to, just say, okay, this ratio is what I was investing with. Now I can also put that same ratio into investing. At that point, it becomes easy. So there's no way that you can tell me, oh, I'm not going to do it now, but once I get that big check, I'm going to just automatically transition into this person that knows how to build wealth. And no way, that's not how it works, right? You're just going to keep making mistakes and bumping your head. And eventually, until you meet a test, at that point, if it's not too late, that's when you're going to say, oh, wow, I need to start investing, right? And at that point, who knows? You may be, the hole may be so big that, you dug such a big hole. Now it's hard for you to get out of it. All right.
Hey family, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are and you have yet to subscribe to us here on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. And also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast and you have yet to leave us a 5-star review, please do so. Now back to the episode. That's very true. And I like the fact that you mentioned that money is a habit. Because something like I like to say is that money doesn't change who you are. Money just goes who you are.
Exactly.
If you're greedy, if you're, generous with money, once you have a large sum of money, you would just come doing that same habit. That habit would just
That's
be
right.
bigger platform. And, I want to ask you right now, what are some resources or education opportunities that you would recommend to doctors to take advantage of to start this process of building financial freedom for themselves?
So one book I recommend to doctors and even anyone that I work with, it's a simple book. It's called If You Can, How Millennials Can Build Wealth Slowly. And it's written by a guy, he's actually a neurologist by training, and he ended up just kind of being a wealth manager. His name is Bill Bernstein, right? William Bernstein, Bill for short. And it's a short book. It's literally free. If you Google it, if you type it in Google, if you can, how millennials can build wealth slowly. And he literally gives you like the blueprint on how to build wealth, right? Basically, he tells you you can't really be building wealth if you're in debt, right? He tells you to kind of cut your lifestyle, right? Obviously, not having too rich of a phone plan and, living in an expensive apartment, right? Obviously, if you make 6K and you rent to 4K a month, I mean, I don't know how you're going to build wealth, right? So, and then he basically, once you're out of debt, he tells you what funds to invest in, right? So you have a total stock market fund, international market fund, and then a bond fund. So he likes those three funds, which for the average person is not bad. You can literally just put your money in those funds and you will end up a millionaire after, a lifetime of investing, right? So, and then he tells you how, gives you recommendations on other books that you can read to basically supplement your knowledge, right? So start there. Of course, all these podcasts, right? Dave Ramsey podcast, your podcast. I saw you had the twins who invest on. I was listening to that episode, the couple that paid off all that debt. I mean, check it out. If you're a physician, there are physicians in this space, the white coat investor, physician philosopher, come check out my page on Instagram, MD Money Mentor. You know, there's so much resource. Go on YouTube, right? It's so easy now probably to build wealth than it was, I don't know, even 5 or 10 years ago, right? Because now the information is literally in front of you. So if you decide, if you don't want to do it, that means you're just sticking your head in the sand and say, I just don't care about this, right? So start small, with a book like that. I mean, you can, I believe it's like 16 pages. You can read it in one night, right? And get started, you know.
Oh, I'm gonna definitely look into reading that.
Check it out.
Um, and it's funny you said that, there's a lot of information out here in the world, which is very true. I 100% agree with you. But oftentimes, what, I find, even myself sometimes, with all the information that's around, people
Mhm.
overwhelmed. They
True, that's true.
into making that decision. So, what led you, once you learn all this information, once you like to actually take the step to open the Roth IRA and
Mhm.
start investing, what
Mhm.
allow you to do that? Because all the time people listen to these podcasts and all these things,
Mhm.
but they never take the next step.
I think you have to take the next step and just do it, right? So that taking action is the next step. Yeah, just taking information, information overload and not taking any action is not gonna, you can't be successful, right? So for me, I think everyone should have a Roth IRA. It's the most powerful probably investment account there is. I mean, it's literally you're investing with after tax money, right? And everything, all the wealth that you build in that account is tax free. Once you're 59 and a half, you can take that money out. Another great thing is it can actually be like another emergency fund because all the contributions that you put in, you can literally take out if you need it, right? Of course, you can't touch the gains that you have in it. The IRS basically treats it like a good faith thing. They know, okay, you put in 20K over life, you can take out 20K. Let's say you want to buy a home, once you're ready, or you want to, start a business or something, you can take that money out and use it as seed money, right? So to me, that's like the most powerful account. So start there, depending on your income level. Of course, if you're employed, self-employed, you have the solo 401k. If you're employed, you can, tap into the 401k there. If they have great options, if they don't, just invest up to the match. If they do match it, and just, then you can move on to the taxable account, right? Taxable account is another account that everyone needs, right? Most people say, oh, I just do my 401k and I call it a day. Yeah, but then you have to wait till you're 59 and a half, right? A taxable account, there's no limits, right? Yeah, granted, you're taxed on, the gains that you may make if you happen to sell the investments, but it's like free will. You can buy any investment you want in that account. You can buy stocks, ETFs, right? Mutual funds, Now, hopefully very soon you can literally buy cryptocurrency in a taxable brokerage account, right? So those three accounts are like, you know, I think everyone should have it, right? So in a way you have to kind of believe, there's so much data to support this, right? The S&P 500 has grown at a rate of 10% since 1926, I believe. So if you, I guess if you're just a cynic and you just, you don't believe anything, I mean, that's your problem. But if you want to be wealthy, at the end of the day, you have to tap into this. You have to believe that, yes, you're worthy of being wealthy, right? I think so for some folks, especially in our community and, Africans, you kind of believe that, this mindset of the rich are evil. I think it's something that we grew up kind of thinking,
Yeah.
no, the rich are not evil, man. No, I mean, of course, are there people who, had, by dubious ways made money? Yeah. I mean, that's everywhere, right? But for the most part, anyone that's rich, maybe had an idea that they brought to fruition and kind of worked on and eventually became successful, right? So you got to jump in the water, right? You got to have the faith. There's a faith podcast, right? You got to have the faith to jump in the water. God wants you to be wealthy, right? Because he has a plan for you and he needs you to fund that plan. So you need money,
Yeah.
right? For me, I like I said, I like to give. So for every cause that I want to give to, I need money to give to this cause. Right. So that's one of the things that's pushing me. All right.
Great. So, I just want to make to clarify. So you recommend people have a Roth IRA, a 401k, and a taxable account.
Yes.
I guess my question in regards to that, or just follow up to that, is how do you go about picking what stock, what is the ETF, a dividend stock, a growth stock, how do you go about picking the strategy you're gonna go about investing in the stock market?
So for the average investor just beginning, and it's not investment advice, just to be clear, but you can start with the S&P 500. That's an index fund that basically tracks 504 of the best companies in America, right? Apple, Google, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, all these big companies. And the great thing with the S&P 500 index fund is literally, once in a while they basically check and make sure these companies they have to have a certain amount of earnings for them to be in the S&P 500. So if your company's not producing, they'll literally kick you out. I believe was it during the pandemic? I think one company was kicked out, right? And Tesla was inserted into the S&P. So that's probably the easiest way you can build wealth. And there's literally people. There's a guy I follow on Instagram. I forget his name. Literally built he's a millionaire. He built his wealth from investing in the S&P 500.
I know you.
Right. I know you think you probably know him too, right? So there are index fund millionaires out there, right? You can just invest in that and call it a day. But my one thing that I say is, okay, so we all use these products, right? Who doesn't have an iPhone? Do you have an iPhone?
Have
Right. How many iPhones do you have in your household?
everyone has an iPhone, MacBook. Yeah, my brother has an iPad, so I love yeah.
Right, right. So my household, we have two iPhones. We have iPads, right? You know, a company like Apple, literally, they just became a $3 trillion company just, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. So if you have a company such as Apple and you use all these products, right? Even if you blindly invest in a company like Apple, I'm not telling you to go buy Apple stock, but such a company is going to be around, until I don't know, God comes, right? So that's a company that you want to also invest in, right? So what I do is I tell folks invest in the S&P 500. You also have sector ETFs that you can invest in, right? So let's say and it this depends on your plan, right? What's important to you. If you're in healthcare like me, you know a lot about healthcare, right? Especially being a cardiologist. I know about companies that make devices. I know about companies that, make products that we use day in, day out, right? Companies like GE, Medtronic, and things like that. I know these companies well. So I can do a little bit more research, right? Look at their whole mission, look at the financials, see if they're in great health, and then also invest in these companies. So once you got the S&P 500 down packed, now you can go to the sector ETF. So you can pick a healthcare ETF. Right now, you can pick a communications ETF. You can pick an industrial ETF. You can pick an ETF on finance, banking, chip makers. Right. So you kind of go down the line. You select maybe a few ETFs that you like, and then after that, now you can go to the single stocks. Right. So whatever you believe in. So Apple, Microsoft. I mean, these are simple companies. Tesla, and a whole list of other companies that you've researched and kind of like and believe in their mission. And that's how you build that portfolio, right? So you want a portfolio that's going to be well-rounded, right? It's not just tech heavy and it's not just healthcare heavy, because then once one is down, it's going to bring down your portfolio and you're going to be upset. And what it's going to happen is that you're going to sell it and you're going to lock in your losses. Right. So that's what I don't want to happen. So at least have a well-rounded portfolio that you can kind of just let sit there. And then unless something changes drastically about the company that you don't like, don't sell your investments. Even if they go down, buy some more. That's an opportunity, right? You get stocks on sale. The stock market is the only market that when prices go down, people run out of the store. It's like what's going on here? Every time when I see there's a downturn in the stock market because the Fed made a statement, I'm like, I mean, you know the history of the stock market. Why are you going crazy? So yeah, that's have a well-rounded portfolio and you'll be okay.
That's very good. And I think the guy you're talking about, you can correct me, is Jeremy Schneider,
Yes,
person of,
yes, yes,
finance
Jeremy.
club.
Yeah. What's his handle?
Person of finance club.
Arsenal Finance Club. Yes. There's
Uh,
another guy, I think Wealth Dad or something. He's also an index fund. I think he's almost a millionaire. There's a few index fund millionaires. The physician on fire. He's also an index fund millionaire. That's someone he's actually great. That's someone to look into. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's actually retired. He retired at the age of 41. He was an anesthesiologist. And now he just travels the world and with his family, he homeschools his kids and guys living the life. Yeah.
that's really good. And which kind of nice question, meaning if I could just mention this anesthesiologist who just recently retired at 41, who retired at the age of 41.
Mhm.
What is your financial goal, once you become a cardiologist, are you planning on becoming a doctor, being a doctor until you're 60, or you have a plan of retiring early as well?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I battle with this every day. Literally, when I see cardiologists, who are in their 70s and I'm working with them and you see them limping and
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, don't get me wrong, most of them are in great shape, right? Because obviously you do this kind of job every day, so you know to, be healthy and of course not smoke and do, all these adverse habits that hurt the body and lead to heart disease. But I'm always thinking about it, man. The great thing about cardiology is that it's like mentally, it's fun, right? And it stimulates, your thinking, and you're always, there's always cutting edge research coming out, and it's fun, right? So if you enjoy it, you can cut back, right? You may not have to work as much, if you're an interventionalist anyway, you may just not take call and not take STEMI call, right? No one's waking you up at 2 a.m. to come put a stent in their heart because they had a heart attack, right? Let the young guys deal with that. And you can cut back and still have a great life, right? So I know one of my mentors, I believe he turned 72 this year, and he's like, he was just in Italy, right, on vacation. I mean, it's a nice resort, and he was like, Charles, I was thinking about it. And I'm like, no, I gotta go back. I gotta go. He's like, I can't retire. So that was funny. I was like, are you sure, man? Because I think I would retire, So I'm not sure, man. We'll see. We'll see. Of course, definitely just being financially independent, I think, it will lead to kind of curtailing, maybe cutting back and just, maybe enjoying my time more with my wife and, my children and, we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Yeah. No, 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 no clear cut answer.
Yeah, and I asked that because, just think about it, even my doctor, I think he's about 70, 60,
Wow.
70, my primary care doctor. Even when you go to the hospital, you see a lot of old doctors, like these limping, walking around. Their brain
Yeah.
are, they're mentally, that's why I asked, 'cause it's just like, am I,
They're doctors who basically they say you would have to drag them out of the hospital. So they're gonna work until the day they die. Like one of my other mentors, he's I think he's actually older than this other guy I was talking about. And unfortunately, his wife passed. So he literally, cardiology is his thing, right? That's all he's got. So he's always saying, I'm not retiring. He's not going anywhere. So yeah, and then, one thing is that, there was this paper that came out that said, a lot of doctors can't retire, right? So being that it's a wealth podcast, it's sad because it's like they probably want to retire, but they can't because they have this lifestyle that, they have the doctor house, doctor car, doctor, private school for all my children and all that. And that kind of, or maybe they may have gone through a divorce, right? So there's some reasons also for some doctors not being able to retire, right? So you may not always know the entire picture. So I think that plays a role as well. But yeah, for me, I don't know.
Okay, that's great. So I have like two more questions before we wrap the interview up. One, just going off this conversation, retirement. Like you mentioned, some doctors are in a position where they can't retire because they have to maintain this lifestyle.
Mhm.
They have, what's some practical tips or strategies for doctors uh, who do want to retire one day, can start putting practice. We mentioned the Roth IRA. Is there any other thing that doctors can put into practice to make sure they're able to retire and they're not just working because they have debt to pay, and they have
Mhm.
lifestyle to maintain?
Good question. So that's where I come in. My thing is, I think for every doctor, saving and investing 30% of your income is basically part of your quality of life strategy, right? It should be part of your plan from the get-go because we have such a high income that 30% of our income can literally go to investing and we can enjoy the other 70% and be okay, right? Even if you want to do okay, all right, 30% is too steep, too big of a cut, do 20%. Put that away. Don't even look at it, right? Just put it in the S&P 500, right? Please. And just, you know what I mean? Like, please help us out, just do that and forget about it, right? Unfortunately, there are a lot of financial praise out there who target doctors because of the high income. And, these are financial advisors who, may sell just, whole life insurance and charge you a 1% fee and things like that. So I would say get you a fiduciary financial advisor. If you know you can't do it on your own, get you a fiduciary fee only financial advisor. They may charge you, a fee when you meet with them, right? And they can still, manage your money for you. Ideally, you want someone like a coach who can kind of teach you also, right? Maybe they manage your money, but they also teach you how to, because no one's going to care about your money more than you at the end of the day, right? That's just a fact, right? So someone who can also educate you about money and basically how to invest and how money works, right? So start early, I would say. Have a plan, of course, for your debt, for your student loans, consumer debt, and even, how big of a house do you want, and plan it out, right? Don't buy too much house. Right? They say, I believe 2.5x of your gross income is the amount of house you can really fit comfortably into your budget. If you want to go the most, 3x. All right. So we're talking, I mean, for someone that makes, if you make 250, maybe like a 750K house, right? That should be a comfortable house, depending on where you are, of course, right? How you're gonna invest for your kids if you want, you want to do a 529 and at least pay for undergraduate college. So have it all in your financial plan. All right. So these are ways that you can, literally sit down and plan your life so you don't end up 65 unable to retire. I guess one thing that I left out, which is really important, is marry the right person from the get-go, because a lot of doctors are screwed when they get a divorce. I've heard some have had multiple divorces, and at the end of the day, they're literally going to work until they die because the first wife took half, the next wife took the other half. Well, half of the other half. So you're basically starting from square one, right? So the person that you marry is probably the most important decision you will ever make besides your fate. God, it's like, yeah. So yeah, he's laughing. It's so important. People are struggling.
And the reason why I'm laughing, is the reason I heard on a podcast. I didn't really know how to feel, and I still haven't processed it. Is the idea of that marriage getting married is a business strategy.
Right. I've heard about that. Yeah.
Um, and usually the only when you think of like doctors and how they, I guess they're, a target to, those who don't have wealthy. So they might find a very nice lady, a very nice gentleman, and really they often usually after their money, some most of the time. That I could think of is prenup. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on prenup? And freedom, trust, and you have any thoughts on that? So a doctor can protect themselves in case
Yeah.
they get divorced because they're likely to get divorced because of the lifestyle they live and yeah.
So for me, I don't have a prenup. I mean, I'm a man of faith, I believe in I believe in God. My wife's a woman of faith. So for us, we didn't do any of that. We basically do everything together. All our money's together. I mean, when she met me, I had nothing. I was a broke student. She probably, I mean, she had a job, but she didn't have much in either, right? So we basically built everything together, right? So for me to, come back and say, oh, let me protect myself. That's silly, right? So, I mean, of course, you know, if you're done with everything, full-fledged doc, and you're going into marriage. I mean, hey, you've got to check the values of the other party. Are they really a believer? Right? Is this someone that, you've prayed about? I always say, the life I'm living now, I prayed for my wife. I prayed, before we met, and it's so interesting. Like everything I prayed for is, she has those qualities, right? Wisdom, right? Of course, beauty, that's important, but just having the right mindset, not just marrying someone because of, they look this way and they have hips and thighs and that's beauty is fading, right? But a woman of virtue, like a virtuous woman, that's what you need, right? Or either way, right? You need a man of character with integrity. So it's very important. You have to assess the person. I mean, yeah, things happen, but you really have to pray about it. That's in my opinion anyway. And I mean, prenup, I really it's not something that I considered. I think it's more for folks who are in the world and kind of just want to protect their assets and say, oh, yeah, you hear of Bill Gates losing half, but think about it. I mean, obviously she was with Melinda, throughout thick and thin, and yeah,
Yeah.
and now she's giving the money away more than he is. So in a way, she's using it, wisely.
Uh,
So
uh,
that's my answer.
yeah, you're right, right. You made me think of Jeff Bezos' wife as well, who he got divorced from her, and she also donated the money to different charities and organizations.
Bezos, yes, yes,
Uh,
exactly. Yep, 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 yep,
and
yep.
my last question to this interview, and just like I want you to kind of elaborate on how you do it, because being a doctor, I can just imagine right now residency, you mean taking the time out your day to do this interview. Such a busy day is not that easy. And oftentimes, that's the reason why doctors get to the point that we spoke about recently where they're not able to retire. Like hits them like, damn, I can't retire. I'm gonna have to work. So how important is time management? How do you go about, setting out different times to read, to look at the market, to also pay attention to the different research coming out in regards to heart, the different medicine, technology. So how do you go about, having those different times?
That's a good question. They talk about balance. I don't think there's really like any balance necessarily, right? If something is important to you, right, you'll find time. If it's not, you'll find an excuse, right? So, I mean, like going to church, right? Just being a man of faith. Yeah, if I'm off on a Sunday, you usually find me in church, right? So it's more of just having, prioritizing things. I prioritize time with my family. In regards to the market, I'm usually looking at it like every day. Like, thank God now there are apps that, you can kind of just log on your phone and all that. Of course, if I'm at work and I'm busy, I don't have time for that. When I come home, yeah, I can spend, maybe half an hour to an hour and just kind of maybe read an article, about the market and kind of research maybe a few stocks and see how my portfolio is doing. Like people say, don't look at your portfolio. I'm the opposite. I'm always checking it. I want to see how it's doing, and thinking of stocks that I want to add to my portfolio. And I also teach a monthly class where we go through where we were building a portfolio to 100K. I actually changed the name to the $1 million portfolio because before it was the 100K portfolio challenge. Now I think we're moving on. We're moving past that, right? So for me, it's like something that I'm passionate about. I really like it, And in terms of medicine, yeah, I mean, we have didactics every week. That's basically what I do. So that comes kind of second nature, and it's a matter of just kind of fine tuning your skills, in the field. So of course, on my free time, I prioritize time to just kind of, hang out with my family and also deal with my personal stuff, right? So for me, this is my personal space, right? And I prioritize time for that as well.
Right. And I want to give you an opportunity right now to talk about your program for those who may want to be involved in your program. How can they get involved?
Thank you. So on Instagram, I'm MD underscore money underscore mentor. You can also go to my website, CFB, that is C like cat, F like Francie, B like Boadu, financialcoach.com. So www.cfbfinancialcoach.com. And yeah, you shoot me a DM on IG or go to the website to contact me. And yeah, I'm open to working with everyone, not just doctors. I think when you read my bio, most people think I only work with doctors, but I have lots of nursing clients, CRNAs, NPs, folks who are not even in the medical field, right? So just each one teach one, right?
Like
That's
that.
my motto.
I like that. And just to close up, what would your word of wisdom be for anyone who have listened to this, and they're still on the fence, about this financial journey, starting this financial journey, actually being active, and not just being on the fence and just consuming information. What would your word of wisdom be?
So I would link them back to the story of the the man with the talents, right? He gave his servants, he gave one five, he gave the other two, I believe, and then one he gave him one. And when he came back, he asked them what they did with it, right? And the man with five doubled it, the one with the two also doubled it, the one with the who was given one actually went and hid it. It's like, you got the least and you did nothing with it. So he hid it, and he's like, yeah, I know you're a man that harvest where you didn't plant and blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, so I'm a mean person, like I don't play with my money, but then you did not invest my money, right? So that's what Jesus is saying. That's like the kingdom of God, right? So wherever you are, however little that you have, start with it, right? Start as small as 5 to 10% of your income, just put it away, invest it in the S&P 500. Open these three accounts that we talked about. If you don't have enough income to be able to even, open the taxable brokerage account, open the Roth IRA, plus your 401k, right? Invest maybe up to the matched amount. So if it's 3%, 4%, and then invest the rest in the S&P 500 in your Roth IRA. Start there gradually as you get raises over the years, right? Bump it up a bit. Try to max out the Roth IRA if you can. It's 6,500 for the year, and start that way, right? It's a habit, like I said. You want to get into the habit of being an investor, right? Because the investors are the ones who are going to win. All right. You don't want to just be a consumer, because the American economy is a consumer driven economy, right? So if you're not careful, you're literally going to spend your entire paycheck and have zero money and live check to check for the rest of your life, which is pathetic. All right. So that's what I had to say about that.
That's very true. I just want to thank you very much, Dr. Charles, for taking time today. And, for those who
You're
are
welcome.
listening, I hope you guys don't see another person on the Wealth Price show sharing their story on how they built up, how they're on their journey to financial freedom. I hope this, start firing you need to get out and actually start building towards your financial freedom, achieving financial freedom for yourself as well. And if you guys haven't yet, you guys can follow us on Instagram, YouTube at Wealth and Price, and see you guys next week.